It seems that the left right now is crowing about how all the Charlie Kirk supporters, all the conservatives that supported him, are calling for bloodshed. They're calling for violence. Well, is it actually all of them? Is it even a significant portion? And are they actually conservatives? Hey everybody, Yankee here. It seems that people on the left right now are just screaming about how all the Charlie Kirk supporters and all the right-wingers, especially the gun-loving right-wingers, are calling for blood in the streets. They want revenge for Charlie Kirk. They're encouraging assassinations of Democrats and people on the left. It's all of them, and they're Charlie Kirk supporters and gun lovers. Well, I want to talk about that today. Is it really all the Charlie Kirk supporters? Well, I don't think so. Charlie Kirk had millions and millions of supporters. And I see just a tiny little fraction of yahoos on the internet calling for revenge or retribution. Such a tiny little number of people actually saying that. And here's the thing. Someone who would say that would never do it. And the people saying it aren't trying to do it themselves. They're not planning to do it themselves. What they're trying to do is encourage people on the right to do it, to make us look bad. So I question if they're even conservatives at all, much less Charlie Kirk supporters. I think a lot of them are plants. I think a lot of them are people trying to pretend to be conservative, trying to pretend to be Charlie Kirk supporters, and trying to encourage us, gun lovers, to do something stupid so that they can, enact more gun control. Because let's face it, those of us on the right, or those of us in the gun community, we know the last thing we would ever call for is go out there and start shooting people. Because that's not going to lead to civil war, as some people are claiming, those talking heads on the internet. It's not going to lead to civil war. It's going to lead to assault weapons bans, semi-automatic bans, licensing for firearms, stricter background checks, after checks. Once you have guns, they got to check up on you, make sure you're not planning something. It's going to lead to stuff like that. And it might eventually lead to enough support in the country to amend the Second Amendment, to where we lose a lot of our rights, if not all of them, when it comes to guns. So people on the right, at least ones that have half a brain, aren't calling for that. And the people that are calling for it, like I said, I don't think they're Charlie Kirk supporters. Because I don't think Charlie Kirk would have supported that. I don't know everything about Charlie Kirk, but what I did know about him is that he didn't promote violence. He promoted discourse and conversation. That was his thing. Now, I don't agree with him on a lot of his points, but I agreed with him on gun rights. And one thing Charlie Kirk said about gun rights is that sometimes there are unfortunate deaths that are necessary to maintain freedom. Basically, he was saying if we want to keep the Second Amendment, there's occasionally going to be some damage. There's going to be some people that are killed. Freedom isn't free, is basically what he was saying. There's a cost. So he believed that what happened to him was a possibility. I'm sure he knew that. But he didn't preach, if anything ever happens to me, go get them. He was a non-violent person from everything I can see. Now, he wasn't the nicest person in the world. A lot of people will say, they'll start putting quotes in my comment section, he said. And I've already said, I don't support him on everything. I just support him on guns and kind of Islam. But other than that, not so much. But as I said, I do know he wasn't someone that called for violence. And these people that are calling for violence, like I said, I don't think they're followers of Charlie Kirk. If they are, they were the stupidest followers of Charlie Kirk because he didn't promote that. Also, like I said, they're not going to do it because they're not going to stand out there and say it if they're doing it. What they're doing is they're trying to encourage you to do it. And that's just garbage. If they were going to do it, you wouldn't see them posting videos. So know that every person that says that or every person that calls for civil war, they're not going to be involved. Because they're the kind of people get on the internet and talk about it in depth. They're not the kind of people that actually do anything. Because they fall into two categories. Morons and people that are trying to encourage a behavior in others that they're not willing to engage in themselves. Either because they want it done, but they don't want to risk their freedoms or their safety. Or they just want other people to do it so they can point at them and say, look what they did. And then punish those people. So I think most of these talking heads fall into those two categories. And I think, like I said in a previous video, most people, right, left, and center, don't want to kill anybody. They don't want to hurt anybody. We find it tragic when someone loses their life, but we don't want to hurt anybody. We don't want anybody else to hurt anybody. We would like to have things settled peacefully. and hopefully settled in the right way, but peacefully. Now, there might come a time when there's a call for violence, but it's not against individuals. It's about institutions. We might have to rise up against institutions, but we don't rise up against each other. We don't rise up against our fellow citizens because they're not the enemy, even if they disagree with us politically. We have to hope eventually their political opinions, become a little more enlightened and they realize that, hey, this country has been co-opted by corporations and billionaires. We are basically ruled now by those people because they own all the politicians. They own the judges. And eventually we will have to rise up against that system. But we'll only be successful if we have people left, right, and center join us. So calling for violence on each other wouldn't further that goal. And I think most people on the right are smart enough to realize that. And right now, I think the left is paying so much attention to these few talking heads that are calling for violence. And some of them are the regular talking heads, the ones you hear all the time on everything. And they ain't going to do nothing to risk their $1 million business and risk their freedom or all that stuff. They just want to risk you. You're the foot soldier they want to push out there, so that they'll have something to talk about and make more millions. And they're more than willing to sacrifice you. So don't pay attention to them. And the left, the only reason they're promoting it is because they want it to happen. They want more gun control. They want the right to be violent. They want gun owners to be violent. They want nothing more. They don't care about lives. They'll gladly sacrifice 10, 20, 100, 500, 1,000 lives if it gets them what they want politically. If it serves their masters. Because remember, the same billionaires and corporations that own the politicians and the judges also own the media on both sides. So that's what you're seeing right now. You're seeing a small number of people. Like I said, most people don't want violence. They don't think it's the answer. Not against individuals, not against other Americans. Violence against the institutions, that I think is inevitable. But against individuals, no. We need each other. We need to come together. And we need the other side to realize, hey, if you give up firearms, if you give up the ability to defend yourself, you're not going to be free. Look at who's pulling the strings. It's not Bernie Sanders or Kamala Harris, the people you idolize. They're just puppets of the same billionaires. It's just they need a few people to pretend like they're not, so that they can seem like, oh, look, there's free voices in politics. We obviously don't control everything because one or two are allowed to speak out. That's part of the plan. So, no, a lot of Charlie Kirk supporters aren't calling for violence. It's just a few people calling for violence. Those people aren't going to do it. They're just encouraging you to do it for one of two reasons. Either they want it done and they're too cowardly, or they want you to do it and look bad. So keep that in mind. Charlie Kirk would not have asked for violence, would not have called for violence. He even said himself that what happened to him is part and parcel of having freedom. So I don't know if I said part and parcel right, but I tried. But as I said, everyone needs to step back, take a breath, because no, people on the right aren't thirsting for violence. And no, people on the left aren't either. But it seems right now that people on the left are sure trying to make it seem like the right's calling for violence. And it sure seems like they're trying to get people on the right to do something violent so that they can get what they want politically.